It's important to note that the money supply includes more than just currency. So when we talk about the money supply in the U.S. economy, we're talking about more than just the dollars in our wallets and the coins in our pockets. We're talking about something broader than that. And what we want to do is think about the availability of funds that can be used as exchanges in different markets. And so we start with a fairly narrow definition of money that's the most commonly cited, and that's M1. M1 in the United States is about $3 trillion, and this has changed very rapidly in the last few years. And M1 is made up of currency and demand deposits, which are essentially checking accounts, and then a few other small categories that fall into M1. A broader measure of the money supply is M2, which also includes savings deposits, small time deposits, very short-term CDs and things like that, and money market mutual funds, and again a few other minor technical categories. M2 is a much broader definition of the money supply and represents about $12 trillion these days. The point is what we're trying to do when we measure different things is measure the amount of liquidity in the economy. How much currency is floating out there that can very easily be turned into transactions, be used for transactions in the market. And so that's what we're interested in measuring. Here's a graph of M1, and you can see that it's grown very rapidly in recent years. In 2008, the money supply measured by M1 was about $1.5 trillion, but it's doubled in just the last 4 or 5 years since about the last 7 years, I guess, since the financial crisis took root. The Fed has increased the money supply in two ways. One is through conventional monetary policy, which they've been using for many, many years, and the second one has been something that's been novel, at least in the United States, called quantitative easing. And we'll talk a little bit going forward about how exactly all this stuff has worked. Quantitative easing is a very new avenue that the Fed has used to raise the money supply. The U.S. central bank is the Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed, and the central bank is responsible for a number of things. First and foremost, they're responsible for overseeing the banking system. They are the regulators of banks in the United States, and they're in charge of making sure that they're in regulatory compliance and following all applicable laws. Perhaps more interesting to us for the purposes of this macroeconomics class is that we're interested in is that the Fed is also responsible for conducting monetary policy. They control, not perfectly, but they control with some degree of ability the amount of money that's in circulation. This is monetary policy, so the Fed influences the money supply. The Fed is made up of a board of governors, which includes 7 members, including the chair of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, who succeeded Ben Bernanke recently. And also, the Fed is made up of 12 regional Fed banks, including the Chicago branch of the Fed. And there's also a very important policy-making body in the Fed called the Federal Open Market Committee. And the Federal Open Market Committee includes the Board of Governors and some presidents of some of the regional banks. The New York president is always on the Open Market Committee, and the other seats rotate. The Federal Open Market Committee is the group that meets together to decide monetary policy. And you often hear that the Fed will announce interest rates, and various open market operations that revolve around interest rates are how they control the monetary policy, how they control the money supply.